Watches and Wonders 2023. Many new watches from watch brands we love and love to hate, and indeed several wonders. I've spent the best part of 2 days wondering what the hell were Rolex designers smoking when they came up with this, or even this monstrosity. Clearly the Rolex design team's trial run of Bring Your Kids to Work Day went down a hit. But by now you've heard all about this, watched countless videos reviewing them hands-on, and yes, whilst I am here in Geneva to try these watches out and see for myself, what we really want to know is what the impact of these new releases may be on the secondary market. What prices do I, a dealer, expect to see these new watches at when they hit the open market? And new releases to one side, discontinuations. Do you own a Milgauss, green dial or meteorite dial Daytona? The question is, what are they worth now? I'm Vinny and welcome to Geneva, the home of watchmaking. Now, it's really the stuff that Rolex don't formally announce that we're equally as intrigued by as the novelties. And that is which watches have been axed from their collection. Now, we've seen in the last few years values of hyped Rolexes have skyrocketed purely based on speculation, rumours that those pieces might get discontinued, prompting an increase in demand from opportunists or flippers to invest now in the hope of a tidy profit when the day of death does eventually arrive for that particular model. And finally, it's happened for the anniversary green dial Daytona that has now been discontinued. So this was a watch that at peak a year ago was selling in the UK for as high as £90,000, US $110,000, and then of course the market correction happened and we saw values tumble to £60,000 or $74,000. I was getting phone calls left, right and centre from clients that wanted to know what to do with watches they'd spent £90,000 on that were now worth £60,000. Should they flip it and cut their losses, or should they sit and wait? Now, I actually did a video at the time on this very subject and I said this. What I would also say is, do you have to sell? Please don't feel that because the market has fallen that you actually have to sell. Just a week ago, the anniversary green dial Daytona could be picked up for as low as £57,000. For a brand new one, you could pick them up for around £65,000 to £68,000. The lowest you can find online now is £84,000, and I have actually seen one dealer try their luck and get £102,000 for a brand new 2023. We expected this to happen. I mean, the hype around this watch and the pre-hype, preempting that discontinuation has been going on for many years, and that's purely what's driven this model up and up and up. And now that it's finally happened, yes, dealers are going to be trying their luck and asking over £100,000 for this watch. Of course, my advice back then was you're probably better off to just hold it and see what happens, and that was the right advice in hindsight, because yes, we can have a look on Chrono24 and some of the prices that have been advertised at there. Really, I think we've got to take that with a pinch of salt. We've got to remember, of course, as well, that the values you see on Chrono24 are inclusive of that 6.5% fee. The market is skewed, it's all over the place. I've spoken to one or two dealers who have said, really, I don't know where to price that watch at the moment. And so you'll see across Instagram that if there are any for sale that dealers have, they'll be saying price upon request, which basically means make me an offer, and if it's a good offer and I make a decent margin on that, then they'll probably sell it to you. If you were one of those guys that wanted to sell that watch, you bought it as an investment at the peak around £90,000, and for the past year you've been waiting to sell that, offload that watch. Now is the time. I've got to stress that this is the big event with this watch. This is what investors have been waiting for. This is the news. There isn't going to be any more rumors after this. There isn't going to be any more news that will affect the market or affect prices and values on the market for this watch. This is the summit. The anticipation is over. It's happened. So I can only see values actually going one way after this. Potentially the only news that we could see that influences values of this 116508 on the market with the green dial is a re-release of, say for example, a 126508 with a new green dial. Maybe Rolex might do that next year or in 2 years' time. I don't know. They are in the habit of re-releasing watches. The 11658 will be old news. It will be an old watch that will be superseded with a better one. Another watch that we've seen be discontinued with the complete overhaul of the Daytona range is the Rolex Daytona with meteorite dials. Now of course on Oyster Flex these come in white gold, yellow gold and rose gold. Last week these were a £70,000 to £75,000 watch on the secondary market. This week, after they've been discontinued, the lowest price that I can find available online is £82,000 for the white gold Oyster Flex, £89,000 for the yellow gold Oyster Flex and £103,000 for the rose gold. A tremendous spike there of over 15%. If you're in the market to buy one, it's probably best that now you wait 3 to 6 months for the market to standardize, so dealers actually know where they stand with pricing watches that they receive and buy at wholesale and adding their markup to, and then eventually you'll get more uniformity. And finally, after many years, Rolex have finally wielded the axe on the Milgauss range. Now it wasn't particularly as I predicted. I believe that perhaps Rolex will be more likely to just update the Milgauss range, perhaps rehouse the movement in an Air King style case. That hasn't been done. They've dropped the Milgauss range entirely, so the Milgauss is no more, and that means that values on the secondary market have of course gone up, and they've increased by around 20%. The more popular Z Blue dial you could pick up last week for around £8,500, so around $10,000, and for a brand new 2022 or 2023 example you could pick them up for around £11,000. Now however, if you look at websites like Chrono24, a Z Blue dial in new condition is being advertised between £12,500 to £13,500. So if you have a Milgauss, well done, you've done quite well on that. And as I said before, if you're in the market to sell, now is the time to sell because the discontinuation has indeed happened. It is a little bit different for this piece as with the Daytonas because this is a stainless steel example, which means it's more accessible to more people at that price point than a solid yellow gold Daytona. That's why perhaps percentage wise the Milgauss has increased more in value initially following the discontinuation as the Daytonas. I see this as being a potential classic. I think it is highly collectible because of that unique design of the green tinted sapphire crystal that no longer exists in the Rolex collection. I think the looking glass of history will reflect on the Milgauss with tinted sapphire crystal as being a little bit of an oddity and one of those designs that was unique and rare, and we know in the vintage market uniqueness and rarity and design, particularly with Rolex, are the models that appreciate in value. And I think in the long term, 10 to 15 years from now, barring any re-releases, the Z Blue Milgauss is a fantastic investment piece. Now let's move on to the new releases from Rolex. I'm going to take a quick look at some of the highlights of the new batch of watches that Rolex have brought out, and really the ones that I think will be most interesting to see at what kind of price point they will hit the secondary market once they start to filter out. out. The best place to start is with the Cosmograph Daytona. Of course, the brand new Platinum Daytona has been released, which is, I think, absolutely superb. For the first time in history on a Cosmograph Daytona. It only took them 60 years to do this, but they finally display that beautiful movement with a exhibition caseback. Demand for this watch, I'm sure, will be huge. As with any Platinum Daytona, supply will be very limited. They don't make that many of them anyway. The older 116 reference, this new 126 reference will be the same. So if we take a look at the standard 116506 Platinum Daytona with standard non-baguette diamond dial, 2022-2023 at the moment on Chrono 24 in the UK you can find at around £95,000. I can see the transparent caseback Platinum Daytona being literally £20,000 more than that, because it's a first. It will hit the secondary market at least £120,000. Let's have a look at another very interesting release, the 1908. For me, this is the most interesting of the lot. I think it was absolutely brilliant of Rolex, marketing genius even, to discontinue that stigmatized Cellini name, replace it with an entirely new range of watches, and of course, like with the Daytona, we have a exhibition caseback where we can view the movement, the engine of a Rolex working away, and I think really that is what will sell this watch. I think this watch will sell at authorized dealers. They absolutely won't sit around as long as the Cellinis did, and therefore I expect them to hit the secondary market in any dial color variation at just above the retail initially, and then potentially they'll drop down to the retail price. That beautiful new case back there and visibility of the movement is what will sell it, and it will sell it as well because obviously this is a watch that comes in at around £19,000. It's precious metal, which is considerably less than the only other Rolex in the collection that has an exhibition case back, the Platinum Daytona. Those who want to see the movement and can't afford a Platinum Daytona will go for the 1908. Moving on then, the new Yachtmaster 42 in titanium. Well, I hate to say I told you so. I did expect Rolex to bring out an all titanium watch following the release of the Deep Sea Challenge, but what they've done obviously here is they've brought in that special edition that we saw with Ben Ainsley. The 42mm Yachtmaster that was designed for him has now come into regular production, which I predicted before. This will be a fantastic watch. It will make the 42mm size more wearable because of that lightness. Where do I expect this to hit the secondary market? Well, initially at least £18,000. And the last ones that I want to talk about, which are interesting because they're so ridiculous, is the new dial designs that we see on the Oyster Perpetual 41 and the day date line. Now, first of all, the Oyster Perpetual 41, they call this the celebration dial because it is celebrating the release of the stellar dials in the year 2020, and it incorporates all of those colours onto the dial. A watch that celebrates the year 2020. A little bit strange that anybody would be doing that, celebrating that year, but of course this is Rolex and they're a whole law unto themselves. How will this watch do? Well, I think it's more of a ladies piece, to be honest with you. It is an oddity and I think crosses that line of becoming more of a niche product. So initially, of course, this will trade well above. I expect this to hit the secondary market around 20,000. And then eventually I would see this coming down to around about the level of where the discontinued 41mm Tiffany dial currently sits, which is around £17,000. The day date as well, that's, to me, is even worse. I don't understand why they've done this. I think there could have been more finesse executed in the design of that. It seems a little bit too childish, a little bit too Photoshop, and that's why, again, as with the Oyster Perpetual 41, I think it will be more attractive to a lady audience, and therefore it's more of a niche product, and values wise will do okay. It will exceed the retail price, but I think eventually will probably come down to the retail, if not below. Dependent, of course, on how long this watch actually exists in the collection. Anyway guys, thanks very much for joining me for this first video of our visit here in Geneva. The next one, we will actually be at Watches and Wonders, getting our hands on with some of the new releases, not only from Rolex, but the interesting new releases from IWC. Tudor have done really well this year, and I love a good look at Jaeger-LeCoultre, one of my favourite brands as well. Our Langenzona have brought out an incredible new chronograph movement, so plenty of watch nerd content to come here in Geneva. Until then, see you next time. Take care.